Hi, you're here. What are you doing? I'm working. You're working. You're basically just taking pictures or making videos. How is that working? I'm doing this to keep record of what I'm doing, and then I end up putting that on social media. You're kidding, right? I'm not kidding. Why would anyone want to see pictures of your science on social media? Well, I don't know why they would want to, but I know why I want to share it with them. People need to see how science is done. People need to see the things we do, and maybe that would encourage someone to become a scientist. So, what are you working on? I was purifying some proteins. That was the exact same thing you said you were doing last week. Do you have to do that over and over again? Yes, I do. 90% of science or more don't work on the first try. And so we have to do the things over and over again, then get the results. And when they eventually work, we have to repeat it again just to make sure the results are consistent, and that if someone else does the same experiments under the same conditions, they would get the same results. What exactly is your project about? For you to understand my project, you need to understand the term, the blood-brain barrier. And just like the name says, it's the barrier between the blood and the brain. So what this barrier does is keep things from moving from the blood into the brain. There are a lot of things present in the blood. This includes toxins, some medications we've taken for some treatments, some very good things like the nutrient the body needs, and so many other things, but there are good things and bad things. If they can freely go into the brain, it's going to be so bad for us because the brain is the center of every activity in the human body. So what the barrier does is selectively allow only things that are supposed to pass, thereby keeping the brain from toxic substances that are present in the blood. So the blood-brain barrier serves as the gate between the blood and the brain. Since you've understood that, my project is to figure out what the blood-brain barrier looks like. You see, this is a great function where this barrier is able to keep things from going from the blood to the brain. But it's sometimes necessary to get things into the brain. For instance, we have people who have neurodegenerative diseases or some specific brain tumors. In that case, you really need to get to the tumor or the cancer cell in order to destroy it, or you need to send some specific drug molecules to the brain. We're not able to do that because of the blood-brain barrier. So I'm trying to figure out what the blood-brain barrier looks like to help us do that. I'm specifically focusing on one of the molecules present in the blood-brain barrier. We call it the Claudin 5. If I'm able to figure out what that protein looks like, it will enable us to specifically target the blood-brain barrier for all the therapeutic purposes we're currently unable to achieve. So that's kind of like trying to figure out what the gate looks like. Exactly. How does that help you do anything? So think of the blood-brain barrier as a gate preventing all these harmful things from getting to your brain. This barrier is essentially the blood vessel made up of different components, the first of which is endothelial cells lining the blood vessels. Regular blood vessels also contain endothelial cells, but they are loosely attached to each other so things can easily go from the blood to the neighboring environment. The endothelial cells of the blood-brain barrier are held together by tight junctions. This is where Claudin 5, which I work with, is located. The last part of this blood-brain barrier is the astrocytic end fifth, formed by astrocyte cells. If the barrier breaks down, the brain is vulnerable to all sorts of threats. So what does the blood-brain barrier let in? Ions needed by the brain or non-polar molecules are let in. Glucose, which the brain needs, and oxygen are also let in. While the blood-brain barrier is great at keeping away toxic substances, it also prevents drug molecules needed for treatments from entering the brain. This makes infections like brain cancer so difficult to treat because the drugs can't get to it. However, if we know what the gate looks like, we can try different methods to try to open up the gate and deliver these essential drug molecules in so many different ways. Lest I forget, while the blood-brain barrier prevents these medicines from getting to the brain, it is a very essential part of our survival. So you don't exactly know what the key looks like either? Yeah, we don't. So my project is a piece in the puzzle. This is a very large puzzle. There are so many people who are doing so many different things just to figure out what the blood-brain barrier looks like and how it could benefit medicine. Some people specialize in studying the cells. Some people specialize in studying the lipids at this blood-brain barrier. It could be anything literally. If I'm able to put together my piece of the puzzle and someone else puts together their piece in the puzzle, we'll have a puzzle solved and we're able to come to a scientific conclusion before we go forward to put this out in the field of medicine. The people who see these things on social media, do they actually understand it? How do they engage? They like, comment, share, show the world? So what's the biggest lesson you've learned about communicating science? Um, the biggest lesson I've learned in communicating my science. Let me think about this for a minute. Not everybody is going to understand what you're saying, but it doesn't make the message it doesn't make the communication any less important. Imagine I talked to you about this blood-brain barrier, for instance, for the first time today. You've never heard about it. And then, if someone else is talking about it tomorrow, you might still not be able to explain what it means, but you know you've heard something about it before. And so all of a sudden it clicks a bell and you want to hear more. And with time, you gather this large wealth of knowledge that you had no idea you were putting together. And it's so useful. You can have a conversation about it. You can teach someone about it. You can become interested and want to study it more. Or encourage someone to study it if that's what they want to do. So it's the little seeds of knowledge that we plant that I love. Alright, I gotta go. See ya. Just like that?